This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on National Voters' Day, making our voters empowered, vigilant, safe and informed. The participants are Akshay Raut, former Director General of Election Commission of India, and Neelab Srivastav, journalist.
July 25th is observed and celebrated as the National Voters' Day. It was this date in 1950 that the Election Commission of India marked its foundation day. This was also a day before India became a republic. The aim of the National Voters' Day, this is the 11th edition this time, is to encourage, facilitate and maximize the enrollment of the voters, especially the new ones who have or are just attaining the eligible voting age of 18 years.
National Voters' Day is the flagship and most iconic program and intervention that Election Commission and the election management in the country has. And it has a very deep and critical meaning. We need to go a little bit to the background. When India became independent, unlike many other countries in Europe and other parts of the West and even in other countries, there was immediately a handover of power to the people in practical sense. The founding fathers of Indian Constitution gave the right to rule to the people themselves through adult franchise. There was no difference between caste, between age, between gender, but it was given universal adult suffrage. It's a big gamble because India's literacy was not very high. After partition, the level of poverty was very high. So a lot of people across the world are very skeptical. But founding fathers had confidence in people. So it was given to people. Then there has been periodic, correct, and credible elections from 1950-51 onwards. So it has been going on very well. India is the largest functional democracy. But is that sufficient? If in Indian polling, the type of voters turnout is like 45, 50, 55 or occasionally 60, that doesn't reflect a full potential of democracy. So, Election Commission of India got down to this task more actively from 2009-2010 onwards. That is why in 2011, you found something like National Voters' Day. The intention is to get all the people of the country to register, whoever is eligible. And those who register, all of them should vote. These are the twin purposes in a way. Particularly the National Voters' Day is to maximize enrollment, all types, particularly the young and newly eligible voters who are now 18 plus and who enroll. That is why about perhaps 2 crore voters have been enrolled in this last year of revision. And 200 million have been enrolled between, say, 2009 general election and 2019. There is a massive emphasis on the participation, which started with a program called SWEEP, Systematic Voters Education and Electoral Participation, that started in the year 2010. And National Voters' Day, which is to recognize new enrollment, mobilize them and get them on board, is happened on 2011. So we have completed 10 years and the Honorable President of India presided over the event today. And this really touches the heart how the young are getting involved, like giving, you said about activity, giving the epic cards to newly enrolled voters, that itself has a huge symbolism. And with that also other things got added, like giving national awards to those who have done best in election, particularly in difficult COVID-19 times in Bihar and other places. Also make sure that the aspects like security, IT, outreach, and also the expenditure control, these also get due focus. The qualitative aspects of election also get a focus on National Voters' Day. It is basically all said and done to put things in a succinct manner. It is bringing back the focus on the most important part of elections, which is people. Because you and I should know, and our listeners I'm sure will know, that elections do not belong to the Election Commission. They don't belong to political parties. They belong to the people. The heart and soul of Indian elections and democracy is in the people. So if people are not involved, I mean, it's just like a stadium without the player. You just line up EVM and put the people in the queue and people go and vote in 5%, 10%, 20%. So these have been somehow been tried to taken care of in the instrument of National Voters' Day, and there has been sufficient improvement in all types of electoral participation in the last 10 years, and the country and the electoral process, which Lady Hillary Clinton described as the gold standard of election management in the world, I think has a reason to be proud of.
The President, Mr. Ramnath Kovind, as you mentioned, did address the 11th National Voter Day celebrations today in New Delhi. He spoke to the delegates and to the Election Commission by a virtual medium. And if I can quote the President, his speech was centered around the valuable right to vote. The President did say that the right to vote is not a simple right. People around the world have struggled a lot for this. And since independence, our Constitution has given equal voting rights to all the citizens without discrimination on the basis of merit, religion, race or caste. I think the inclusive feeling of the country and voting as one, I think that is what the President was speaking about, and that is what the entire scheme of elections in the country mean, Mr. Rao.
that philosophy, the Honorable President has so nicely portrayed it in his address. That is the core of Indian democracy functioning, that everyone, a single vote counts. It's not a coincidence that in election management, even there is a polling booth for a single voter in many places. And now this inclusiveness, Election Commission has taken to the next step forward. There are three things. One is information, one is motivation, one facilitation. These are the three things on which rests the total story of voters' participation in Indian elections. People must know what, when, where and how. People must be motivated. They must know the reason why they are voting, and they must be looking forward very eagerly to the time of the polls. And then secondly, as much we can facilitate Indian electors, still it is less. We must give them all minimum facilities, whether it is a shade from the sun, the water in the queue, or even people who come with child in their arms, like a creche for them. We have gone into the new era of model polling booth. We have gone into the new era of mobile polling booths, except for Buddhist monks. So there is gradually the election management working on bringing the migrant voters, the NRI voters into the fold. Basically, the facilitation is not a limited exercise. People who are on the frontier, our soldiers, their voting must be made very smooth and friendly. So all these three aspects, IMF, they are moving together, and that gives actually a functional right. What President talked about is a right which is in principle, which is great. But to operationalize it is not easy. It requires a lot of hard work, and election management is doing. I'll give you another example. We now went through the COVID-19 pandemic, and hopefully we are gradually getting to overcome. Many parts of the world were reluctant to hold an election. But in Bihar, it was the largest election ever in COVID-19 times. There was scare. There was apprehension. But things moved with a lot of preparation. The health department was by the side. Social distancing was kept. The masks were on. But at the same time, we got a record voting. That shows the inner faith of Indian people in democracy practice and democratic elections. And that is what the whole right is all about. Now, I would add one element of responsibility. We have a voters' pledge which talks about to vote using our conscience, using our proper ethical, moral scape, by not taking into account divisive things like caste, creed, money power, undue influence and all that. So from the voter side, that has to be an exercise in which there is a purity in the exercise of voting. Right and responsibility both put together can fulfill our Indian democratic elections much more than ever before.
You were talking about the kind of facilitation that the Election Commission does, and talking about COVID-19 pandemic. We have seen how hugely we have relied on technology, and the Election Commission also, by way of technology, is trying to ease and smoothen the process of polling and the entire electoral process as such. We are talking about now, very soon the Election Commission is launching the e-EPIC, or the electronic elector voter ID card. The first time the electoral photo picture cards were launched in 1993, and also about remote voting. So I think, Mr. Raut, is this to ensure that the smooth, fair and inclusive elections are, with the help of technology, is taken to the every nook and corner of the country? As you said, there are cases where even polling booth has been established even for one voter.
Technology is the best facilitation, as we all know. And COVID-19 has proved it more than ever before. And in India, the election management has to touch something like 93 crore voters, electors on a roll, if I am not incorrect. So with that type of scale, it is not easy to do most of things offline. So we are going to online mode. EVM in itself was a starting marvelous and most important starting point of use of technology to facilitate a large election. Sometimes there is a question that why certain countries are not using it. Look at their scale. We are the size of elector which combines many continents' population. So if we don't have the EVM, we spend tons and tons and tons of paper and we keep counting them night after night after night. So that was the starting point. Now, with a huge power backup of IT in a country like India, if we don't go for e-EPIC, which has been launched today, so then what all technology is for? And with Aadhaar having come up, I think we are going to see a very new era of technology-based elections in the coming days. But one thing cannot be forgotten is safety and security of election, because the single vote, the people's mandate, is respected so much, and that holds so important in the process of election. Technology, when it is being used, has to be done in a manner that there is no breach of security of voting. That's one important point. That is why I think the Election Commission and the management has been taking every step with a lot of care. The remote voting, the internet voting after that, and people pressing a button to vote from some place, all these are being seen in the context of how security and secrecy of voting can also be maintained. For example, we had certain doubts about EVM. So the VVPAT came on, and VVPAT has become a force multiplier in making sure, because finally it is the credibility or it is the perception. Caesar's wife, as they say, has to be above suspicion. You must not be doing correctly. You must also be seen doing correctly. That is why any amount of thing done to trust between the election process and the people who are the voters, it is definitely deserving. And the use of technology can do it more and more and more.
Apart from facilitating the voters by various means by ensuring that the nearest polling booth to any voter is as close as possible, the Commission also has a very important role in ensuring a fair playing field for everyone. And that is where the role of checking on the black money, curbing of various illegal inducements, putting up, I remember, apps like C-Vigil. So I think that is also a very important role for the Election Commission, Mr. Rao.
We will see all these type of reforms from election to election because management learns from one election and puts it into work in the next. I think that's a great piece of evolution that we have seen in election management. If you remember, I would attract the attention of the listeners to the fact that not long ago, there was the problem of muscle men, the booth capturing. The muscle power used to hijack a part of Indian elections, particularly in certain states. It used to happen more. But that is a matter of past. With EVM and enforcement of security, that is gone. No one is talking about snatching of the ballot boxes and all that. And with EVM coming, it all became a matter of even much more of the past. But the other thing which is yet to be tackled is political finance. The expenditure control or expenditure management. How much money is coming into election? Is it pure money? Are those being accounted? Is there an undue influence happening in the financial transactions that happens at the time of elections? So these are definitely certain things which are occupying the Commission's mind. We are also looking at how there is a bad use or evil use or misuse of the huge outreach that has been possible by the social media and how it can complicate the atmosphere. We started with dealing with fake news. The Commission at one point of time started dealing with fake news. Now it is fake news, all types of influence that can come in social media. So these are new challenges which also come with technology. But I think the Commission's heart is in the right place and it is focused on areas as they come from year to year. And when you go to the next 5 elections, I am sure we will see also new experimentations. Like we have seen in Bihar election focused around COVID-19 protocol. We'll see much more in the coming elections and I am sure that the election management is on a sound and continuous improvement track.
One important aspect that I picked from what you said, Mr. Raut, was about the COVID-19 pandemic. You did touch about the kind of preparations that the Commission did while conducting the assembly polls in Bihar last year when the pandemic was raging, and in also Panchayat elections in Jammu and Kashmir. The COVID-19 or the coronavirus has still not gone away, and we are looking at elections in 4 states and 1 union territory, which is West Bengal, Assam, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Puducherry. Specifically on COVID-19, Commission had taken various measures like increasing the polling booth so that distancing between the voters is ensured, sanitization ensured, and also the overall arrangement of the security forces. These are also 2 very important roles when it comes to conducting elections in such a state where the entire globe is now battling the pandemic. We are in the vaccine stage, but still the pandemic is still here.
You have said it all. I don't have to add much because, yes, there was a lot of learning how to handle a big election in COVID-19 times. It happened in Bihar. I'm sure the Bihar election experience will go to these 5 elections and more. More importantly, we are a country in a vaccination mode now. Vaccination mode has its own complexities and specialities. So those will also be taken note of, I'm sure, in the election management. As I call it, it's now going to be election mode in vaccination mode. So in the 5 elections, this is going to reflect. But the classic problems of maintaining neutrality, the classic problem of enforcing a healthy model code and maintaining security, these things will remain. I think the COVID-19 is an extra dose of responsibility which gets added to the already important bunch of responsibilities which the Commission has in conducting any election. But I'm sure Indian bureaucracy in the election time all rise as an election machinery and deliver the best election which the world looks at and tries to learn from.
Thank you very much for talking to us, Mr. Raut.
Thank you very much.
You were listening to a discussion on National Voters' Day, making our voters empowered, vigilant, safe and informed. The participants were Akshay Raut, former Director General of Election Commission of India, and Neelab Srivastav, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.